Scenes from several fronts of the war as fighting in Israel reaches its 8th day. This as tens of thousands of Israeli soldiers prepare for a full-scale invasion of Gaza. We are just learning that Secretary of State Antony Blinken will return to Israel Monday for further talks following a visit to other leaders in the Middle East.
IDF issuing a statement saying forces are currently preparing to implement a wide range of operational offensive plans, which can include combined and coordinated strikes from the air, land, and sea.
At least 1,300 Israelis and 29 U.S. citizens have been killed in the fighting so far.
The New York Times reports that Israeli forces have delayed their initial plans as weather conditions in the area could worsen.
Meanwhile, a second U.S. aircraft carrier is on its way to the Mediterranean Sea in what Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin calls a show of force as the U.S. continues to affirm its support for Israel.
Despite that, Iran is now warning Israel to stop the fighting immediately, saying any further action they take will cause a, quote, huge earthquake for Israel if the operations in Gaza continue. And now let's get to Mike Tobin on the ground in southern Israel with the latest. Mike.
Well, with troops at the ready, good morning, gang. With troops at the ready and so much anticipation that the ground offensive would have started by now, you can see the artillery sits behind me at the moment. The guns are quiet, and the ground offensive did not materialize. You've seen the reporting from the New York Times saying that the weather was the reason that the troops didn't go in, that the drones and the other aircraft wouldn't be able to spot as much detail on the ground. What I'm getting from a source is weather is just one of the factors. They really want to optimize the all of the factors before they move in and minimize the risk to the soldiers who are accompanying all the armor that's going to be part of this anticipated ground offensive. Still, the Israeli aircraft continue to pummel targets overnight. Israel claims they got another high-value target, an individual named Bilal al-Kendra. They say that he is part of this Nukba. They call them a naval commando force that was central in the planning of this October 7th massacre. Specifically, they say this Bilal al-Kendra was responsible for planning the attack at Kibbutz Nirim. This is the third high-value target that Israel says they've got by airstrikes over the last 3 days. Other operatives with Hamas and Islamic Jihad have also been killed, according to Israel, with 100 airstrikes conducted overnight. The northern border is still extremely tense. Rockets came across the border overnight. There was a strike in a town called Shtula. And in that town, an Israeli Arab, meaning an Arab man with Israeli citizenship, was killed. He was working on the farms up there. He was killed. 2 others were injured. Dozens of rockets continued to fly over that border. Israel has responded. Thus far, that hasn't melted down into another front. But we sit here watching the Gaza border in the south of the country as these soldiers are waiting to get their orders. You saw they got the visit from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, telling them that the next stage is coming. So far, the order has not come. Guys, back to you in New York.
Mike, you said it's a multitude of factors, weather being one of them, but it's got to be evacuation of folks in northern Gaza, which we've seen disrupted by Hamas at many levels, and also the coordination it takes to bring in that many troops and do it effectively and move in decisively. One last comment on any of that, but also I've heard reports that the rules of engagement for Israeli soldiers have been loosened a little bit in the expectation that when they go into North Gaza, they're going in against anyone there is someone that can be considered an enemy. Can you report on any of that?
Well, one of the things that we've seen with Israel in the past, when they go into the Gaza Strip, they'll lay down a bunch of scorched earth with the idea that anyone who's not a combatant would leave. They've issued this warning telling anyone who's not a combatant to leave. We do know that there still is personnel in the northern end of the Gaza Strip, meaning Hamas or Islamic Jihad fighting personnel, because the rockets continue to come out. We know that there's a network of tunnels. We know that they anticipate that as the Israeli front line advances, there's the potential that fighters could pop up behind them and attack from the rear because of the tunnels. They do have a great deal of intelligence about the tunnels, but you have to doubt that they've exhausted all of the intelligence about the tunnels. But we've seen in the past, even with fighting in the West Bank, as these radical Islamic fighters retreat, they leave behind booby traps. So it's fraught with peril as the Israelis prepare to go in, and they're trying to do everything they can to minimize the risk to their own troops.
No doubt.
All right, Mike Tobin, thank you so much.
Mike, thank you.
We'll check in with you a little bit later in the show. I do want to bring up, talking about Gaza, I don't think this is the type of analysis that should lead to paralysis, but it's always important to understand and ask yourself what comes next.
Yes.
And we probably did not sufficiently have an answer to that question before we went into Afghanistan.
Or Ukraine.
And that, you brought it up earlier, Pete, what happens next in Gaza is got to be part of the conversation today, at least for the government of Israel, meaning occupy, true occupation, not what is called now an occupation. Turn it back over, turn it over to who? Because Hamas is the ruling, essentially, government of Gaza, and the point is to cut out Hamas like a cancer. Then what comes next? All of these questions are very monumental about what happens. The task of an invasion and a hostage rescue and all of that is monumental, and it probably pales into comparison of the task that follows.
And all of that does, you're exactly right, all of that does impact how you move through in the first place as well. But I've read multiple reports and heard from people that say this all happened so fast that there hasn't been a full reckoning with what the next phase looks like. And I think part of it might be what kind of resistance they face and what kind of combat they encounter, how the hostage situation unfolds. So I don't know that they know what that end state is right now. You don't always have the convenience of knowing what that looks like. Rooting out Hamas, you're right, the elected, now the permanent government there, but also a terrorist organization that's killed 1,300 of your citizens, innocents. I don't know that they've thought it all through, nor had the opportunity.
Or the role of Iran in this, who is now saying, if you go into Gaza with ground forces, we're going to get involved as well. And they said we're going to cause an earthquake for Israel. Then the question then becomes, how does that impact America? Do we end up getting involved and drawn into this? After all, we have some hostages that are Americans and also those killed. So it is very complicated. And thinking ahead, I'm so glad you brought that up. What comes next? Because it could be World War III. So it's something that we need to really do cautiously.